Today on Hot Takes, we're talking about the versatility of Aaron Paul as an actor and how you can best represent yourself and your business to others. All that coming up next. You don't want to miss it. What's up, guys? I'm so glad you joined back in again. I just wanted to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Join in on our Patreon for as low as $1 a month and get a shout out at the end of each episode. And if you or anybody you know is looking for any film or video services, be sure to check out evanrogersfilm.com. Evan Rogers Film, creating the visuals of the future. All right, guys. Well, I wanted to jump in on this one. Aaron Paul, man, one of the best actors I know, one of the best actors ever, and one of the best dramas of all time, Breaking Bad, as many of you know him as Jesse Pinkman. I love him to death. He's somebody that I think is very versatile, as we're talking about in his roles. He plays a very, in Breaking Bad, when he's playing Jesse, he plays a very, guilty role that's constantly changing it up, right? He's always all over the place, trying to fix things, trying to, he's corrupting himself, he's corrupting others. It's such a good storyline. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely go and watch Breaking Bad at some point. But it's very interesting because he goes from reckless to passionate, distressed, comedic. He just shows so much versatility. We're going to talk about that and what that can mean for your business. But I love him. I really think he does a great job at studying his characters. And as an actor, that's something you want to put your time into because obviously you're playing the role that's going to be portrayed on the screen. But a lot of times it's not you. And that's what I love about Aaron Paul is he takes so much time doing that. I wrote down here, Aaron in particular channels a very intense understanding of his characters in which you could be absolutely convinced that it is who he is if you met his character. So that's the thing is as an actor, I would imagine you really need to get into the nitty gritty of understanding exactly who this character is, where they come from, to the point where if somebody met you on the street, they'd believe that you were actually that character. You're sharing this very intense connection, I think, between the two. In general, Aaron Paul deeply studies his roles to think through every possible response a character may have to a certain issue, right? So he's always taking that time to think about, how does this person react to this? Or how does this character react to this? You see that with Jesse a lot because obviously he gets thrown a million different things in Breaking Bad that he has to deal with. Mistakes he's made, people that come after him. He's always on the run. He's always thinking on his toes. But that's not who Aaron is. So it's very interesting to watch Aaron study almost method acting, which I don't know if you've heard that before, but almost like method act that character. I don't think he did that to that degree, but if you've seen Jim and Andy, I think is what it's called, that documentary by that's about Jim Carrey as he studies it goes into method acting, let's just put it that way, where he's on set and when he's in between takes, he's still that character. It's like, how well do you know that character? And I'll come from this standpoint. I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it, but I acted in high school and I did a lot of musical theater and stage. And a lot of the things that I learned about acting from that was the intense connection and relationship you can have with a character, even if it's not you. There's a way to connect with the character and understand how the character thinks and what he does and all that stuff. And Jesse's a great character for Aaron because Aaron, it kind of fits that bill, but it's not him personally. So he put a lot of effort into playing that role. So this is kind of what I was already saying. I wrote this down. This is where the art of acting can play incredibly useful for yourself and your career. All of this stuff that I'm talking about, right? I think you can see kind of where I'm going with this. There's this kind of thing in business where your personal life kind of stays out of the office. And I think if you've noticed this for long enough, no matter what job you're working in, as you show up to the workplace, a lot of the stuff that you value the most, like your family, even your entertainment that you watch, different things like that, kind of stays private. You're not going into the office necessarily telling everybody how or what you did the night before, or what you did after you got off work, or what you did over the weekend. If you are, you're kind of telling them surface level stuff, not necessarily deep down, right? That's what's interesting about you as a person, and what you bring to the business. So I wrote this down. As a businessman or woman, it's it's important to picture yourself as a character. Oftentimes me, like I've said, Evan as a businessman is not the same as Evan at home, like I've been saying. If you think of it that way, you're more easily able to combat issues and challenges as they arise. Now, I want to say one thing here before I get too deep into this, because that doesn't mean that you're losing your authenticity, right? Or your honesty. You definitely don't want to be lying about any facet of who you are to somebody, right? But it does help if you think of the business world and like the difficult things that you're going to have to deal with day to day. It might not always be day to day, but if an issue arises, how you're going to deal with that, right? If you think of the character that you kind of build as a business persona, it's still you, but it's still not you at the same time, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to draw. I'm reaching here, but I'm trying to draw a comparison to Aaron Paul here and how he studies his character so brilliantly. It's almost like you have to put a game face on, right? When you're going into, I wrote down here, removing yourself from the situation and seeing the business character instead helps you remove emotion and shoot straight and fairly with others, right? So if you're in a situation where, I don't know, something's not going well. Let's say a project that the whole team is on, people are disagreeing about it, or you're running against a tight deadline, or both, or many other things. A lot of times you got that meeting at 2:00 and at 1:50, you really don't want to go to the meeting. This is where kind of building that business persona comes in, because you need to put on that game face and show up for that meeting unfazed, right? At least that's what our culture kind of demands, especially in the US in business. This is something I learned in the corporate world. This is a lot less film related, even though we're talking about Aaron Paul. This is something that I definitely felt challenged by. I was just telling some friends last night that this is something I feel like I've been growing in, because it's a really difficult thing. There's situations where you get a call from your wife, or you find out something in your family that you didn't want to know, or a friend passes away. I don't want to go that way, but something horrible will happen, and that's on a Tuesday, and you still have to show up the rest of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a lot of times, unless it's a complete emergency. Obviously, I'm not going to take that away. But how are you in such a deep emotional situation going to be able to deliver on your deadlines or your meetings or whatever, right? That's what I started thinking about. And I'm like, well, one of the things I learned from corporate is there's so many opportunities for you where you get pulled into a room, whether or not you want to, where you have a meeting or you have something where you have to face a boss. And a lot of times it's impossible to let emotion from your personal life hide that from your face. However, there's something about the art of removing the emotion, right? And removing your personal life from who you are in the business. And the business version of yourself, like I said, still operates with honesty and upright character and all that stuff. However, you're kind of removing that personal connection so that you as the business person just needs to go handle a meeting. This business person doesn't think about the emotion of things in their life, or the challenges of day to day outside of the work office. This is just you as a person, right? And I think that for me, because I was an actor, and I'm not saying everybody's got to do this. People have ways of challenging or channeling it differently. But for me, coming from the acting space and watching people like Aaron Paul be such deep method actors in what they do, I started realizing this is kind of my way to separate, right? I'm still Evan in who I am, in what I strive, my morals, what I strive to put forward in anything I do. But I can remove the emotion of the day-to-day at home life, or family life or friend life, right? This is you showing up and doing the black and white deliverables that are needed, and showing up for meetings and being there on time and being able to deliver. And I think there's a lot of pressure to that. That's not always healthy, obviously. There should be a thing about life where you're able to grieve and do all of the things you need to do. But it's very interesting, especially as, if you're a business owner, especially, you definitely have to represent yourself constantly, right? If you're an employee, you really should. And a lot of times it doesn't always work out that way, but there's a lot of things to think about. And I think Aaron Paul does a great job at this. And something that's very interesting is actors, you don't think that actors have to deal with all of this stuff in the corporate environment, but they do. There's studios and there's managers and agents and all kinds of people that these actors also have to represent themselves in front of. And they have to do the same thing. Ironically, even if they're studying a character, they also have to have the business version of them when they go to interviews and interviews and interviews. There could be something going on in their life, but they have to put it away. And there's a power in putting that away. That's why we're talking about versatility. And Aaron Paul's a great example, right? So I wrote this down. This is probably recapping what we just said, but it's important to hone into your game face, which is absolutely crucial to have in business. Life is life, and it often finds a way to pull your attention away, especially during work hours. You need to push this to the side and often step into that meeting unfazed. I just said all that stuff, but just recapping. And then acting training, this is the next point. Acting training, similar to what Aaron does with his characters, for example, can be extremely effective in learning your weaknesses and strengths in an effort to deliver on them every single time. And I just wanted to come at this point. I know art is not really for everybody, but as you guys know, like broadening your perspective and learning different areas that you don't know outside of your craft is really useful when it comes to your craft, because now you have a new and expanded horizon almost and perspective on what it is you do, because you understand what other people do in their crafts and how they approach things, right? And that helps you when you're pitching, that helps you in all kinds of stuff. But I just wanted to put that in there as kind of a personal angle too, like how much I've learned from acting about myself as a person. And I haven't really talked about all of this yet, but what's amazing is when you're studying your character, you start realizing how that character thinks, like I mentioned earlier, but you also start realizing how you think through how they think. You don't realize like, wow, I think that way. I think that way about my approach to how this character thinks. And you start learning about how to interact with people in your scene work and the collaboration that it takes to work with somebody else in a scene to deliver the right message to the audience. And in a similar way, that doesn't go very far from the corporate environment. You and your fellow employees need to deliver on a product, right? So I wanted to throw this out there as like what acting benefited me in. And I'm not an actor necessarily anymore. I would always love to step back into that, but it's something where it's really like helpful. Even if you don't decide to be in that career at all, it might help to take an acting class. You start to learn like how you can approach and do things properly to help deliver on things. I kind of just made that connection right now, actually. So it's kind of funny. But yes, so all of that, like putting a bow on all of that stuff, especially with Aaron Paul. Aaron Paul does a great job, like I said, studying and learning characters that are complex, that are different than maybe he is, but he delivers on them every time. And he's versatile because you see him play lots of different roles. Jesse's a great example from Breaking Bad, but then he's also in Westworld and he's also in a million other different shows and movies. And he always has to approach things in a new way because it's broadening his perspective. But then you also have Aaron the businessman, like I said, like I was just likening him to, who has to still face his managers and all these people and the studios. And that's hard. It gets tasking. Life is tasking and difficult. And, you know, he has to deal with all of that on top of a personal life. So you're looking at almost 3 different versions of Aaron. And he's very good. And what I love about him is you watch his interviews, and if you meet him in person, which I know some people that know him in person, he's consistent. And that's really the point I'm making. Versatility is important because you need to also, through all of those different versions of what you offer and who you are, you need to be consistent about your morals, about your beliefs, whatever it is. You need to always be Aaron when you show up. Or for me, I always need to be Evan. And even though I might leave out some of the personal details of my life, that's okay. That's an okay thing to do. But you definitely can't go outside of your framework, right? Your framework is your morals and what you offer and what you deliver on, right? So food for thought. I love spitballing on here because I really think this is something I've been thinking through, and I definitely don't have it fully solved, but I think this is good food for thought to kind of, you know, hopefully move you guys in the right direction, and help myself move in the right direction. And I think Aaron Paul and all actors in general are good examples of this. So if you haven't had a chance to watch Breaking Bad, I would definitely do that. I think that's his best role for sure. He's 5 seasons in there of just great content. I mean, there's probably like near 50 episodes of just like incredible performances every single time. And it's very good though. It's very good. I would recommend it. But I hope all that makes sense. I hope that's clear. Thank you for tuning in and listening again. Another Hot Takes episode. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Join in on our Patreon for $1 a month and get a shout out at the end of each episode. Thank you, Ethan Welch, Next Level Supporter, for supporting us on Patreon. You guys can definitely do that, and there's lots of cool benefits, including special episodes, which are going out every month, and also other benefits in there. And then if you or anybody you know is looking for any film or video services, be sure to check out evanrogersfilm.com. Evan Rogers Film, creating the visuals of the future. Guys, thank you for tuning in again. Episode 7 of Hot Takes. We are just cranking them out, and there's new next step episodes coming soon. I can't tell you when. The Next Level supporters on Patreon know when, but I can't tell you when yet. But thank you guys so much for following along, and I hope you have a great day.